Hey there, it's Saturday, Sunday morning. My classes today, my medical shamanism class. I'm going to be doing a blurb on more stuff. Um, yeah, and hopefully finishing my websites and all kinds of stuff. There's on consciousofeconomics.com, there's a whole bunch of content that I haven't gotten up yet. So there's the pages, but they're kind of empty. But I have a ton of content to get up there. I just have to find the time. So anyway, I just woke up. So for about a year I've been really thinking about talking to people. I've had a really abnormal life. Not a bad life. I mean, there have been some serious challenges in the last 20 years, but a really abnormal life. And because of it, I was taught at an early age to kind of be quiet and, kind of be good at hiding a little bit and act normal. So I've kind of decided that I want to start talking a little bit more about, I guess, more topics that would seem insane, I think, to some people, maybe insanity or crazy. So, my grandmother, that was on my mother's grandmother, used to tell me when I was a little girl, because she was a prophet and an exorcist, and she hid behind the veil of the Pentecostal church. And she was a really powerful woman who wielded a lot of power in the Pentecostal church, some of the larger Pentecostal churches. So, my grandmother, well, we used to all go camping as a huge family. I mean, we did several outings a year. We went to all kinds of different places and fished and hung out as a family. And so when I was growing up, we had kind of even though it wasn't perfect, and we had kind of poverty. We had a pretty tight knit core family, um, and I remember laying in the tent, the old canvas tents, listening till late. My family talk about you know the giants that were here, the Bigfoot, um, vampires, extraterrestrials, and not in a way of I wonder if they're real, more in a way of they are real stories. And so I grew up in a completely different world. I grew up in a world um, with demonic entities, watching my grandmother, release demonic entities out of people at an early age, and you know, being abducted a lot of my life. I mean, early life, um, and just weird things and phenomenon that I also have come across on my own. So I never doubted and I never questioned, you know, certain things exist. I just always have believed everything exists on this planet, and just some of it comes in and out um, multidimensionally, into the interdimensional realm, which is here where we are, because that's where our perception is from, experiencing it. So I wanted to start talking about things that are a little bit more interesting. So in 2014, I went on a really big trip, and it was tough because I didn't have any money, and it was led off by going to Sandpoint and spending 10 days of ceremony with my teacher, Shoshone medicine man, learning these earth healing ceremonies and how to release a lot of violence and hatred and things like that, to release the meridians, um, so that the earth could operate and function, because otherwise none of the meridian lines or the ley lines were working, because there'd been so much mining, and that's a whole other topic, and so much violence. So, and the same thing happens with the human body. So, I could understand. Anyway, so I ended up going to New Mexico and seeing a friend of mine that I had not seen in a while. And I did not tell him about this experience because he had enough on his plate. And, there are just some things that I just kind of weigh out the pros and cons. Like, is this a situation that I should, talk to people about? I mean, always, I try not to withhold. I go out sometimes on locations to people's property, and I have to read the energy there. I have to do some medium type work, except for I don't work with ghosts, so I don't do with any of that kind of stuff. But I can feel and pick up the residual energy from lots of different things. And then I work out a plan with the person on how to clean it up, shut it down, and shift it for, the greater good of all my relations. So that, that meridian, that little spot is clear and clean and can function in a good way. So, on this trip, I ended up going to New Mexico. A friend of mine was there at the, Yogi Bhajan Center. I forget what they call it. And it was like the 10-year death of Yogi Bhajan, and also it was his birthday as well, like birthday celebration. Anyway, so there's a lot of, um, sick stuff going on. There's a lot of Kundalini stuff going on, and, just a lot of different stuff. So he was down there. He had gone, when he was young, like 18 or 19, he lived on the Yogi Bhajan Ranch in New Mexico. And then, went and had a life and dabbled in and out of different kinds of yoga and Kundalini yoga for a long time. And then eventually, later on in life, he went back to see, if there was anything that he missed or things to pick up. And then he started kind of being the yoga teacher early in the morning at the Yogi Bhajan Center. So anyway, I met him doing, Kundalini yoga stuff in San Diego when I was down there. And there was a whole bunch of crazy stuff that went on down there too. But I hadn't seen him in a really long time, maybe like 6 years. So he had had a stroke, series of them. So I went down to New Mexico to see if I could help out and visit him on my trip. And mind you, I was, involved in like this driving vision quest, like on-road vision quest. So everything for like 4 months was super intense. I mean, all my fears and just stuff that I still needed to dig through at the core were, I was facing them and battling them and dealing with them. So it was pretty intense. Anyway, he had this acupuncture person that was coming up from another town. Well, him and his roommate traveled to this other town to go to this acupuncturist, and they both felt like the acupuncturist was, like really helping them. And he wanted me to really meet the acupuncturist because we he felt that we were both kind of powerful healers, kind of a thing, and also to see how I felt about the other person, kind of a thing, just kind of read them, I guess. So they were supposed to have an appointment in 2 weeks. So I was going to stay for 2 weeks, and then I was going to head out because I was going to be heading to back to Durango, and then I was going to end up going to North Carolina and then New York and then back around. Um, Rest stop hopping. Like I said, I kind of been living on the fly by the seat of my pants for quite a while. Because, my spiritual work and the work I do is, let's just say Abby normal. So a lot of people don't value or understand the importance of my work. And a lot of the work, there's no dollar signs, there's no value that you can put on it. But people have no idea what people like myself or some of my teachers, the kind of work that we do, have done, and how different this earth experience could be in a much more negative state. Because some of my native teachers are very, very powerful people. Some of the most powerful people I've ever come across. My great grandmother was by far also right up, maybe above them all, in power and in a shamanism type person. So anyway, so I was going to wait to meet this person. So meanwhile, I took him to some places that he had not been back to. And since he was like 18 or 19 years old. And so he drove me to this place on the river. Unbelievable stones and crystals. And I mean, it was just unbelievable. There was beings watching us, I believe that they were native people who had crossed over, who were protecting the area. And after I gave a tobacco prayer and, stated our intentions, that we did not doing any harm, that we're coming there to benefit my friend and get him some healing in this water because he felt that he really needed to get into the water. And anyway, it was a really good thing. It was a super good thing for him and for me because I didn't know if he, because he wasn't able to use like part of his left side of his body. So I had to make sure he didn't float away in the rapids. So I just sat up on the rocks and it was just beautiful. And so anyway, we were making pilgrimages up to those places. And so it came down to the time where, this acupuncturist, we were going to drive to this other town and go to this acupuncturist, and they were going to have their treatments because his roommate had brain cancer and he was fighting brain cancer. And anyway, he later on succumbed to brain cancer. And since I had brain cancer, I know how difficult it is to shift. It's a long battle, and you got to hang in there. I think my battle was like 8 years. And then I had a ton of physical stuff that I had to restore. Almost the physical stuff that was left from the damage of the nervous system was way worse than getting rid of the tumor. But I think the tumor took like five years, probably about 8 years. I started talking without a kind of a stutter in my vision and just lots of things. So And I did it alternatively. So, um, yeah. Anyway, so about 3 days before, they get like an email or a phone call saying, that this acupuncturist was going to be traveling through, and instead of them coming to this acupuncturist office, could this acupuncturist come to their house? And so, I'd asked my friend, I said, oh, does this person, do they make house visits and stuff? And he said, no, never, never, never. But they were like, yeah, that's fine. That would save them a long trip. That would be fine. And then the acupuncturist needed a table. And so the roommate kind of offered my table up because I have a portable chiropractor table that I do some treatments on, when I travel, kind of a lightweight treatment table. So when we got back from the river, said, yeah, that's fine. I'll drag it out of the room that I'm in. And wherever I go and I stay in a room or I stay on property or whatever, I always put a revocation and on the room, or like if I'm in the van staying and I'm on property, I do revocations of energy, and then I pull any kind of invitation that has been given by myself or other people, or haphazardly happened to any kind of energies, frequencies, beings, or people. So I'm really particular about, my energy field. And I should have known that there was something really sinister coming because the roommate had a small pit bull, and the dog was fine with us for a couple of days, but one particular morning we got up as it was getting closer to this acupuncturist coming, and my dog and I, we walk out into this little cove to go out into the bigger part of the house, and there's that dog looking at us, and it had totally different eyes um, than I had seen, and so it kind of turned into like a hound of hell. And, I think it was a warning kind of a deal. And the dog launched onto me and my dog, and it was like a battle. We fought this dog off and then threw it off, and it launched back and fought it off and tossed it off. Meanwhile, no one in the house came to like intervene. They were like all in shock, like in the kitchen. And you could just hear like me screaming and the dog attacking and growling and barking and my dog freaking out. I mean, after it was all over, my dog was limping. She had blood. I had blood all over my hands. My arm was like partially dislocated. It was pretty crazy. It was a pretty crazy thing. I've never in my entire life ever been attacked by a dog. Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty stressful. Anyway, so that happened as, the approach of the acupuncturist was coming to the house. It wasn't until the very end that I had to put it all together, that I knew exactly, what was going on. And, unfortunately, my friend and his roommate were under the spell, of the acupuncturist, which I'll label here in a few. So, I'm noticing like these really freaky things going on, and I'm telling Jonathan, that's his name, and his daughter on the phone that, it's not a safe place for him to be, that, he really needs to get out of here. And they were trying to, get arrangements to relocate him back to San Diego. All right. So sorry I'm building up to this, but it's a really intense story. So, so anyway, the day that um, um, the acupuncturist was supposed to come, the person was supposed to be there like around 2 o'clock. So, since I was going to be leaving a couple days after that, we decided to go back up to this beautiful, you know, river place because, like the energy was just so good. And we were jiving with the location, and it was pretty warm out, and we just needed a break. So we go back up there, and we figured, we would get back in time. I could drag my table out of the room that I was staying in, and then the acupuncturist could use it, and blah 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 blah. And everything would be fine. Well, we get back, and the acupuncturist had showed up like an hour earlier, and the acupuncturist had talked the roommate into going into the room that I was using and helping to drag the table out, even though they still had like an hour. And I kind of had this really weird feeling of trespass. And that's kind of when, the intensity of everything kind of went off. But anyway, so I decided to, just kind of like hang out in the room and take a nap, and while they were both kind of getting, their treatments. And whenever there's some kind of weird energy thing that impacts me, I immediately retreat. And I, am not always nice about it. I do not stay in there and save face. It's weird how I'm talking about this, and my voice is kind of, having some trouble. So there's still a lot of energy around this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, my teachers would say you probably shouldn't talk about this kind of stuff because it, can bring it to you again. But I want people to know. I want people to know and kind of understand that, this kind of stuff is in this world, and that you have to be really, really careful about what you do, how you do it, who you choose to do it with, because there are consequences. Even death, early death. There can be a lot of things that happen. So anyway, I make it out there just to, say bye or whatever, and then drag the table back, into my room, blah 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 blah, and then we went on a long walk, had dinner, blah blah blah, went to bed. Well, like about 2 o'clock in the morning, me and my dog are laying on the bed, and it's against the wall, and here's the door over here. Here's the bed, and here's the door to the room. So the door is almost across from the bed on the wall. And I have my face turn the wall, and I wake up because I can feel this energy coming towards the door of the bedroom. And I didn't, and then I felt it come into the room, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I don't want to turn around and look at what it is. Like, I don't even, I don't want to look at what it is, but part of me like said, no, you have to look at what it is, and flipped me around, and I looked, and I could see the face of the acupuncturist coming in this like energy field towards the bed. And in a split second, I realized that my revocation and in, um, had been revoked by the trespass that was made into the room by the roommate. So, I immediately sat up and revoked the invitation out of the room, but I could feel the door. The door did this, and the acupuncturist was waiting, outside of the door to figure out what was going to be next. Now it's like spiritual war, and usually when an entity comes at you like that, and then you give yourself some energetic space, you can read what the hell's going on. So I realized, and it just totally blew my mind, because I don't really, you can call people energy vampires, but it's haphazardly that a lot of them are doing it. Unless they, cast a spell or a curse or something on you, they're doing it haphazardly. So it's partially your fault. If they're draining you dry or sucking you dry of energy, it's partially your fault because you're allowing yourself to participate in the situation. So, it's like kind of bullshit, actually. But this was a real vampire. It was the first time that I had ever really come across a real vampire. And the interesting thing was that it fed off blood during the day, and the energy from the blood that was released from the blood via the acupuncture needles, right? And what I got from my friend was that there were periods where when they went into the office that this acupuncturist would bleed them in certain ways, bleed different points. So the vampire also, the acupuncturist / vampire, anyway, they had gone to medical school and for whatever reason didn't finish medical school. And I'm like thinking, great. You just go draw blood out of your victim and drink it. And then I was like, I wonder how many other vampires are in the medical system, And the other thing that blew me away was that the vampire had a day job called acupuncturist. And then also fed at night, would come in an energy and feed off of the they're not patients, victims. So at night there was a whole feeding process that went on as well. And so when I came on scene, the vampire became considerably alarmed energetically. And I believe that the dog attack, coming to the house, and the acupuncturist vampire never usually makes house calls. And then later coming into my room and then, revoking that, pulling the invitation out. And I left like 2 days later, I really wrestled with, my friend may see this story. But I wrestled with, do I make myself look, that much further out there, and tell the truth about what's going on? Or do I just get the hell out of here and let whatever is going to play out. So this is the first time, I think, that I am talking about this story. So, and once I left, the vampire really had no interest in me because it could continue to feed off of its victims that were getting treated by the vampire. So I learned a couple of things, that the vampires, they don't sleep at all, that they can have day jobs, and we could have a lot of them in our healthcare system. That they do drink blood, that they are in proximity to blood, human blood, and that they also feed energetically off their victims. And it seems to me that it is a long-term relationship. So you couldn't get rid of these entities or beings. I mean, they could cause you to get sick energetically, which means that you would need to go to the doctor. And then you're caught in a crazy cycle. So you have to revoke the invitation. And I'm going to write that down, because revoking invitations is pretty simple. You don't really need like a whole lot of stuff. But I should do a little video on revoking revoking energies and contracts, and revoking invitations in a later video, so people kind of know how to do that and feel more confident in case you're in situations that you are involved with something that you may not think is completely human, or even, could be paranormal or whatever. So anyway, that is my running into a real vampire that had a real job. And the part that I couldn't wrap my head around was like, they have a day job. And then after I wrapped my head around that, I'm like, oh my God, they're in a field where they're dealing with blood. Super, 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 super crazy. And the other part is that, people that were gave this vampire invitation to do acupuncture or whatever else on them. I don't do any bloodletting with the type of acupuncture that I do. I am anti-bloodletting. And you know what? I think I might just tell you a quick story. So I believe that bloodletting, this is why murders and, all this war is, because they're giant, ritual sacrifices, and it's the blood. It's the blood that keeps, the dark forces happy and fed. And I feel like a lot of, I truly believe that only 30% of the people living on the planet are actually human. There are human alien hybrids. There's Sumerian tablets, Anunnaki human hybrids. I believe that there's hybrids that the Greys have been making. There's clones. There's these doppelgangers. There are people who don't age that come from alien lineages that are here. And I believe that there are some android functioning as human people. And there's a whole other story. Maybe I'll tell you about that. I also have, I had 2 clients. One was from giant descent and could shapeshift. But when he got worked on, you could see like his full height. And then I had an experience with a friend of mine that I know is an android, because they were off one day, and it shocked me. And then I've had clients that are half reptilian, half human hybrids. So I've dealt with a lot of different kinds of creatures or beings, or whatever you want to call them, but they're not always human. So anyway, with the whole blood sacrificing thing, I've always been kind of like anti. And in the past, I have used some mild blood rituals, like sacrificing a big beetle for a spell of protection. Um, I dated a guy who was extremely, extremely dangerous, like legally dangerous. I carried a concealed weapon for 5 years. And he tried to put plastic explosives under my car and blow me up. It was like a really big thing. But because he came from a really prominent family, the this was before 9/11, the ATF and the feds, nobody would do anything about it. Right? They like put it back on me that I'm some loser or whatever, making stories up. Anyway, so I had to use a protection spell against him, which worked really well. But that's the extent of blood sacrifice type stuff that I would use, and it's a jar spell that I developed, where I lock him and everything about him in a jar, which keeps him away from me. And then so all the spells in the jar, and then bury it. Later on, I forgot about it, and I had to go break into this house where I had lived and I had buried it to dig it up to release it all because it was time. So anyway, anyway, my teacher Bavado Shoshone, elder medicine man, said that even Sundance, it was started during a period where people needed to heal from what was going on, especially the warriors. So it was a ceremony that was brought in order to do that. But he felt that the blood that was sacrificed during the Sundance rituals was aiding the dark forces and the negative energies, and that all that Native people had to end all blood rituals that they were engaged in. And we had lots of lengthy conversations about this, but he traveled all over and released, ritualistic, satanic, murders, all kinds of stuff from around the globe, mostly around the United States. And in order to get the earth back online with her ley lines, and getting everything back up connected. So, and he died in 2016 in June. And a lot of it has to do with, spending 16 years on the road that this is all you do. And I've done ceremonies where, like I've been violently, violently ill for a long period of time after. And I always hate these stupid ass elitist, spiritual people who'll say things like, oh, well, you need protection. Okay, well, somebody has to be the vehicle in order for this dark energy to be assimilated. Somebody has to be the power spot, the acupuncture needle, that this stuff can be released out of and then balanced. There is no protection when you're doing really traditional ceremony for the earth and for all the relations. So it's tough. And that's another thing that people have no idea what is going on. And so for medicine people and shaman people that are doing the greater good work, for us to live in poverty, in the gutter, and not be, these people not being respected. Like I said, they're the ones that are shifting the reality into the potential of something good by, releasing this kinds of stuff, the atrocity and the negative energies that permeate a lot of these areas and layers and layers. I mean, you think about, what is it, Burgundy Beach? I I mean, how many wars and how many bloodshed and slaughter, and then that blood went into the water. Talk about tainting the ocean water globally with just negative, dark energy and fear and terror that were in the people who died in those battles. That has to be released, that stuff has to be released. And the native people, original people, are the only ones that know how to really, really release that stuff. So, anyway, ritual sacrifice is bad. So, you see, somebody, you go to an acupuncturist and they tell you that they're going to bloodlet you because, you have emotions in this one meridian and it has to be bloodlet, say no. Acupuncture is one thing, and there, you may have a little blood that's released or whatever else, but yeah, don't let yourself be ritualistically abused by the medical system. My God, babies are being born, and a quarter of their blood is by cutting the placenta too early, is gushed out onto the floor, makes it hard for the infant to live. That's a ritualistic sacrifice that the doctor has learned to do at medical school, right? Regardless if he's aware of what the hell he's doing, is besides the point. Don't let yourself be a pincushion at a hospital. Tell him, look, you want to draw blood? Draw all the blood. I've been in Western medicine. Tell them to draw a whole rainbow of every blood that they're going to need instead of causing ritual sacrifice. Oh, well, we've got to draw some more blood. And then, the next thing you know, you're black and blue all over your whole body. Don't allow yourself to be ritually sacrificed. Ritually bled. So I know this is kind of a really intense kind of subject, but it's one that has really, really effed me off for a long time. But, how do you tell people in a, peaceful way? And I'm hoping my big video on this is going to be about communion. Because it's really horrifying if people start thinking about it in a different way, and then changing the entrapment from it. But anyway, this is Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel, and I'm doing these videos to help other people. And I'm not always forward with or extremely candid with some of the things that I know, but I'm getting more so. I'm getting more confident about talking about it or discussing it. And as a shamanistic practitioner, I've always just been taught to be quiet anyway. Shamanism can be a solitary road, and for most of my life, it was a solitary road. And there are a lot of things in me that I know, that I understand, that are beneficial, but trying to reach them and pull them out, and there's so much stuff to talk about, is a whole other story. And also all the experiences and all the things that I know about this world. I was approached by the first demonic beings, when I was like 4 years old, and I had a stigmata, burn stigmata, which is like a brand that comes out of your body. Mine came out in 2 symbols on the bottom of my feet through really high fevers, and I believe that the 2 symbols, you bring them together, and it's the medicine wheel in the 4 directions. So I believe that I have a role on earth, and to bridge worlds and bridge everything in a good way and help to restore original systems, kind of a thing. So I've had a really long journey, and a really tough journey, being, like a science fiction novel, right? Living in like some kind of real world, except for everybody else is living a science fiction novel. And as I age, I realize like I'm the one, like, very rare that some of us are actually living in a reality. And but most people like their science fiction novels, and they like to be the star of their science fiction novel that has no basis in fact or reality. So anyway, with that, I'll bid you adieu. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.